Did somebody have their hand up?
Yeah, I did.
I just was looking to see if I was on time.
Okay, you're good. Thank you, first of all, for coming all the way down here. That's quite a drive. I worked for DNR back in the 70s, 76 through 82. And at that time, they had one person who was in charge of what was called non-game. So he had everything that no one shot at. And then there were dozens, and I don't know, dozens of people who worked on the game side. Do you have any idea if that's still pretty much the same? I know you said one guy decides, but do they just have like one
Yeah, I think,
biologist?
well, DNR was pretty much gutted, right, in the last administration.
Yeah, that's probably not a surprise.
So, yeah, I don't think they have the resources they need.
And they didn't really
yeah.
have them for the most part then.
Yeah,
So-
and I've had actually people reach out to me and say that the data from Southern Illinois is skewed. We should all be questioning it. So, yeah, I just feel like when decisions are made on a species like this, it more than just hunter interest should be taken into consideration. Especially when you look at those numbers, right? If you look at the trend, now we're on, like if we take out that first 141, because it's not comparing apples to apples, right? You had 500 permits versus 1,000 permits. That trend line is starting to go down. Is it starting to go down? I mean, all the permits are going out. The hunter, what do they say, the percentage of hunter success rate is, for this season would have been 29%. The hunter success rate is out there. Are they even out there, right? So like why, if you hear all these like, oh, there's a bobcat behind every tree, or there's so many bobcats, they're becoming a nuisance. There's a way already, there's a process already to deal with nuisance species. Do we really need a bobcat hunting season to deal with a species that's really taken 40 years to get back, that we can even see them in our state again? 40 years is a long time, so if we wipe them out again due to hunting, it's gonna take another 40 years for them to become a population that's sustainable again. Yes?
On your data, it looked to me like, and maybe it's just my imagination, but it looked like the first year everybody was really excited about hunting them, and so you had a very high amount of kill. And then as you progress through the years, I would assume that that would balance out in the same amount of hunters. Our permits would be filled in the same amount of hunters, but the number of bobcats being killed has dropped. So that kind of says, I think, that the population is already dropping.
Yeah.
With hunting, right? I mean,
I think
isn't that what that
too, yeah.
data would say?
I think that, I mean, if you look at Dr. Jake's data, which is 1.43 West Central, right? And now we're taking them out of West Central. And likely what's happening is we've had such a large population of bobcats in Southern Illinois that they're just starting to disperse to the northern area. I'm sure that those bobcats in Winnebago County weren't established there for years. I'm sure they're probably newer bobcats that have moved into our area, either coming down from Wisconsin, because we're right at the Wisconsin border, coming up from Southern Illinois. But yeah, I do agree. I do think if you add up the total of bobcats taken over the last 6 seasons, it's over 1,000. So if you take 1,000 out of the estimated 3,000 to 5,000, that's a lot of cats.
And,
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
well, do you have something follow up from what you
Well,
were just
not
saying?
exactly a follow-up, but I forgot what I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Well, I know you said that, you know, your maps were kind of dated and such, and St. Clair County is kind of in a bit of a vacuum between southern and western Illinois and such, but I wondered if you knew about the potential for bobcats in St. Clair County.
Can you tell me where on the map that is? 'Cause I actually don't know.
It's next to where we're at now.
Okay.
It's one town, no, two
It's
towns.
the next county north. So,
Three down from
diagonal
Akuka.
down in terms
Okay.
of St. Louis, there's a preserve in southeastern St. Clair that a friend thinks could be Bobcat County, but I was thinking they'd be further south.
There could be, and I can look at the end if you want. We can look at the DNR. The DNR, so here's some research that the DNR doesn't collect. Because every year I ask them, well, how many females are taken, how many males? They're not collecting that data because this is actually kind of insultive to hunters. So like hunters can identify a male from a female, so we don't ask them for that data. Well, if you're hunting the species, you should be able to identify it, right? I don't know, that's just my personal opinion. So they're not even collecting that information, they're not collecting the age, they're not collecting any of those things. What they do collect is what county they were taken in. So we can look after here, if you want, if you stick around and see if any were taken in St. Clair. Yes.
We have a real exploding population of armadillo here. The question is, do they eat armadillo? That would be, if you want to protect bobcats, that is probably one of your keys is saying, yes, they slaughter them pretty big time.
So in Florida, there was just recently an article about a bobcat stealing python eggs and eating them, which is good, right? Because pythons are invasive in Florida. I've also seen bobcats hunting iguana in Florida, which also invasive non-native species. So sometimes they do help with that. I'll have to look to see if they actually eat. I don't know.
You're right. I was hunting deer a couple different times, and I heard bobcats. I can't tell you what they sound like, but I figured out what it was because they came to me. They were like a half a mile away, and they were hollering at each other or talking or whatever they do. And it was a pair. But you said that the female is much smaller than the male. I couldn't tell the difference between these two.
It depends, right? So the female that we collared also was only a year and a half old too, so perhaps she wasn't full size. But.
Well, or will two males go together?
Yeah, see, I don't think.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
it's possible.
That's what I was really wondering is who hangs out? Do they all hang out or?
I don't think the bobcat is so little research. There's so little research on bobcats that I don't think we really know their habitats enough to like definitively say they're solitary, especially after Karen has all these photos and evidence of these two females co-dangling. So I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done. You know, I know bobcat is one of the most abundant cat species in North America, but when you continue to have states that allow unlimited hunting, eventually you're gonna run out of bobcats.
Could you comment on the states that surround Illinois? Are they hunting in border states?
Indiana's still no hunting state. Ohio's still no hunting state. Wisconsin hunts. Iowa hunts. Missouri hunts. I'm sure Tennessee does. Well, we touched Tennessee too, right down in the southern region. I'm sure Tennessee is a hunting state. Yes.
Does Illinois have a shortage of game wardens?
They could.
About 2 years ago, I talked to this guy, and he had a huge area that he was supposed to be covering.
That could be true. So I had conversations with Ed about poaching. Poaching is a real issue in our state too. And he, in order to establish relationships with landowners, he'd also go to the taxidermy shops too and talk about who he could talk to. He saw untagged bobcats there. I'm like, you tell me who it was, Ed, I'll turn him in. Because he won't turn him in, or he didn't turn him in because he's trying to establish relationships, right? He wants to be able to, it's all politics. He wants to be able to work with the landowners to get bobcats to collar. So if he turns them in for poaching, they're not going to work with him. But it's a real issue, and the wardens aren't going out to these taxidermy shops and auditing them like they should, or reviewing what they have.
Don Schottner is our game warden in this area. He covers a very large area. And my understanding is that they did have such a shortage of manpower that he was, he talked a little bit about being a bit discouraged last deer season because he thought he should be out in his area patrolling, controlling game. But instead he had to go teach people, or they were trying to get people to become game wardens, and he was kind of having classes and interviewing people and doing all that stuff. Which he actually wasn't in the management part of it. He's actually was a game warden to do, patrolling. So it's kind of seems like it's really a big problem.
Yeah, well, I think, like I said, I think the IDNR got gutted underneath the last administration, and they were short-staffed anyways, and then we take away more staff, and they don't have the resources they need. I mean, obviously, I think we should be doing way more bobcat research than what we're doing, even on collection of the the taken or the harvested species, right? I do think we should be collecting more data on estimated age, sex, because if you're eliminating females more than you're eliminating males, or you're eliminating more males and you're eliminating females, that's gonna have an impact on sustainability as well. So they really should be monitoring those things. Other states do.
Isn't it legal to actually own a bobcat in Missouri and keep it in captivity?
Yeah, there's a lot of states. Montana, you can go out and, you can't in Missouri. Missouri, I think they have to be captive bred. Montana, if you get a bobcat kitten, you can keep it and raise it as a pet. Different states have different regulations. Yeah, Illinois is a no, although there's a woman, and she was in the news a few years ago, you might have seen it, I think down in this area.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
weeks ago.
I'm pretty sure she still has that bobcat. She went out and she found her way around the permitting process, and she's supposed to be using it for education. I don't know that she is though, but she got a U.S. Fish and Wildlife permit versus state permit, and you have that, or maybe it's some sort of agriculture permit from the United States. It's not an Illinois permit that she has, but one of the requirements is that she uses that bobcat for education. Whether or not she's fulfilling that, I don't know. I would not want a bobcat. That's how Boris ended up at the Wildlife Discovery Center. Boris, I've been in the enclosure with Boris. The people that had him when he was a kitten declawed him, removed his canines. That bobcat cannot be re-released. He is domestic. Someone bought him to be in like a dog and pony show type thing. He was with a bunch of poodles in a trailer, and Rob Carmichael, who's the curator of this little Wildlife Discovery Center, was called. He happened to be with his kids in Indiana at some cheerleading contest where Boris was, so he went and looked at Boris and said, yeah, I'll take him home. But Boris literally tore up his house one day, like ripped all the curtains down, and like before they had the enclosure for him because he kept him in the house. So they're very destructive, and their urine stinks. Oh my gosh, like when I leave that enclosure with Boris, I reek. It's pretty gross. But Boris is very friendly. He can definitely domesticate bobcat. I suppose it's easier when they're declawed. He doesn't have his canines, but he has no reason to fight back, defend himself.
Chris, did you have a question?
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
We have a family farm in central Missouri, and last fall we were up there during the last day of deer season, and we were driving around in our pickup truck, and we saw another pickup sitting there, and we thought, wonder who this is. We didn't know anybody was deer hunting. So we drove around, we chased up 2 deer in the open soybean field or cornfield, and this man came out of the Hollow Creek area, and it's like, who are you? And we said, well, who are you? You know? So once we established he had permission to hunt there, and her brother, we asked if he got a deer, and he said no, and then he offered this information. Oh, I just shot a bobcat a little while ago. You did? Well, it turns out there's bobcat seeds at the same time.
Yeah.
He said the bobcat charged him as he was standing deer hunting. 3 times? 3 times, and he shot it. I guess he shot it with his deer rifle.
So he said.
So he said, but he wouldn't have had to offer that information if he didn't want to, because we didn't see the bobcat. We didn't go down the hollow to look at it. You know, it was down the hill a ways. So it was really, have you heard of stories like
No,
that?
I haven't. In fact, when we went out and did the VHF stuff, we knew there was a bobcat within 50 yards of us. We did not see it though, because it was not exposing itself, but it didn't come out and charge us. Could have, I suppose, but it didn't. But most likely bobcats are very afraid of humans. To say one charged him, I probably wouldn't believe it, but unless I saw it.
We're still
Now, if you're like, I've seen videos of hunters calling in bobcat, right? You can call in a bobcat and they come right up to you, and then they don't realize, right, this is a hunter that has camouflage on, and then you might get a reaction from the bobcat. But even then, in most of those cases, that bobcat takes off.
I found on YouTube some
Bobcat
bobcat
calls?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let me see if you can hear it. Okay, that one's not working. Let's try it there.
You're so quiet.
Yeah.
So kind of, someone sent me an audio, maybe it was last year, and then I never really could figure it out. Sometimes a fox sounds like a bobcat too, if you've heard of fox. So he sent me a video in between, and I sent it off to a couple. I know quite a few wildlife biologists too, so I sent it off there. And between all of us, we couldn't figure out if it was a fox or a bobcat, but they're pretty close too. So if you know what a fox sounds like, pretty similar.
Raccoons can sound like cats fighting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I think that may be some people's misconception, because there's a lot of raccoons around here. But I hear them fighting all the time, and I can see where they would think that maybe there was a bobcat.
Yeah, they're definitely in the state of Illinois. I've seen them only because I've had the benefit of going out with the researchers. I'm pretty sure I saw one in Winnebago County when I was, I know where they're at, and up until recently I had a little miniature horse, and where I boarded him, I swear one ran out in front of the car one night when I was going out there. I also want to see a bobcat really bad. So I don't know for sure if it was, but I know that there are bobcat in the area. There's like 3 forest preserves that border that, the barn where we were boarding, and I know they're sighted out there. I think it's a male, because he shows up then on the Ogle County cameras. It's like border of these, and there's somebody that lives in the area that's sending me the trail cam videos. Yes.
Lived here my whole life and finally saw a bobcat a few weeks ago. I mean, I don't have pictures or anything, but is there somewhere I can report that? Is anybody
They don't,
tracking that?
no, DNR does not track that. They do track cougar, black bear, and wolf in the state of Illinois. They don't track bobcat though.
They are this year. When you turn in your deer.
Oh, well,
your
yes,
deer
if you're a
permit,
hunter.
Then they question whether you saw any bobcats and other species.
Yeah, they will check.
They just had a bobcat a few years ago to that.
So but they don't, like for someone like you who didn't go out and hunt and don't have a hunter card to turn in,
Yeah,
like
just
they
happened to see.
they don't usually take that information.
So we really have no way to know, like, what the population would be in our county, no idea at all, or do we?
And they do it based off of the deer hunter.
They do that,
yeah.
just like deer, the way Illinois actually tells us our deer population per county is how many are hit by a car, believe it or not. That's how they determine how many deer are actually in your county. That's their counts. So they got methodology. Some of them are strange, but they have methodology.
Mark, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, Deanna?
I just have a comment off of her question. So there are like some apps like I know iNaturalist. You could personally say like, oh, I saw a bobcat here, and then that a lot of researchers will use the data points in iNaturalist to track animals that are in the air, animals, plants, insects, all sorts of stuff. So that would be a way if you really wanted to do that without going through the state.
No,
And
that
birds
sounds
too.
good.
Yeah, birds, all sorts of stuff.
On our website, they may have some.
Yes, sir.
Do you know much about the denning of the female and when she's got pregnant and gonna have the kittens?
So they're opportunistic, right? They don't actually build their den. They'll den in an existing old coyote den, or they'll find a log, or they like barns and sheds underneath decks. And they will move their litter several times. And that is really because, right, she's most likely the only one raising that litter, so she moves them out of safety. So she usually has a couple dens in her area set up where she can move to if she ever feels unsafe.
Thank you.
At what age are they weaned?
They can stay with their mother up to a year, which is challenging, right? Because our hunting season. So if they're a late breed and they have kittens in October, because they can have kittens late in the year or late in the season. Hunting season starts in October, so if you kill an adult female that's still either weaning or teaching them to hunt, you impact the mortality of that kitten too, whether they're going to survive or not, because you've taken away who's teaching them. Now, some bobcat rehab centers I've seen, not in Illinois, because I know Who Haven waited till theirs was over a year old before they released it. There was somebody that contacted, well, maybe I should backtrack on that. There was somebody that contacted me from Joe Davies County, had a kitten hanging out, no adults, and I have the pictures of it, it wasn't very big. She called IDNR about it, and IDNR said that kitten's old enough to be on its own. Whether or not they can, I mean, it's a wild animal, so perhaps that kitten made it through the season, perhaps it didn't. But some rehab facilities will turn them out earlier than a year old to go out on their own, if they think they're ready.
Any other questions? Well, yes.
That was kind of gross, but you mentioned cannibalism. Is it similar to like where with domestic cats, a tom might
Yeah,
eat the kittens?
yeah, especially, yeah, other cats can come in and definitely kill her kittens. I don't know if they always eat them, but they can certainly come in and kill them.
Just kill them more, okay.
I think like great horned owls are actually top of the line predators, believe it or not. We have a peregrine falcon cam for Mississippi, and I'm worried because a great horned owl has come to our ledge where the peregrine falcon lays her eggs every year a few times now. I'm seriously concerned about that great horned owl. Those are like aggressive hunters. I love great horned owls, but I did not realize until you like actually, you know, Google some videos of great horned owls and them attacking other birds, and it's pretty wild. So I would be more concerned about an owl grabbing a kitten, especially if they're out at night and she's teaching them to hunt. And